Thank you for your interest in the Research Training Programs in the Education Sciences Grant Competition. This competition covers a number of training programs, each of which we will discuss today. We encourage you to reach out to one of the program officers in the National Center for Education Research associated with the training program you are interested in. Our contact information is listed both in the Request for Applications, or RFA, and at the end of this presentation. During this presentation, we will provide an overview of the Department of Education and IES, cover the purpose of the training grant program, and discuss the fiscal year 2020 funding opportunities, including details about each of the training programs, PreDoctoral Training, PostDoctoral Training, and Methods Training grants. We will also briefly cover both the application submission process and the application review process. We encourage you to review the IES Basic Overview of Research Grants along with this presentation because that overview may contain additional information that will help you think through your training program application and how your training program's focus supports the broader mission of IES. Before launching into the fiscal year 2020 training competition, we will briefly describe the core purposes of IES. As you probably know, the U.S. Department of Education, or ED, aims to promote student achievement and preparation. The Institute of Education Sciences is the research branch of ED as authorized by the Education Sciences Reform Act in 2002. We are nonpartisan and we are charged with providing rigorous evidence to inform education practice and policy and sharing this information with educators, parents, policymakers, researchers, and the public. The overall mission of IES is to describe the condition and progress of education in the United States, identify education practices that improve academic achievement and access to education opportunities, and evaluate the effectiveness of federal and other education programs. This graphic represents the organizational structure of IES. We are led by a director who receives advice and consultation from the National Board for Education Sciences. The board consists of 15 voting members who are appointed by the President and confirmed by the Senate. Our science office oversees the scientific peer review processes for IES grant applications and IES reports. We also have 4 centers within IES. The National Center for Education Statistics is the primary federal entity for collecting and analyzing data related to education. Within NCES, you may be familiar with the National Assessment of Educational Progress, or NAEP assessment. You will also find in NCES many large national longitudinal data sets, including, for example, the Early Childhood Longitudinal Study. The National Center for Education Evaluation and Regional Assistance, or NCEE, conducts unbiased, large-scale evaluations of education programs supported by federal funds, provides technical assistance, and supports the development and use of research and evaluation throughout the United States. In NCEE, you will find that the What Works Clearinghouse and the Regional Educational Labs. The 2 centers that award grants are highlighted here in blue. The National Center for Education Research, referred to as NCER, and the National Center for Special Education, or NCSER. The grant opportunities that we'll be talking about today are managed through NCER. You will also notice here that the research centers are separate from the science office and standards and review staff, meaning that we, the program officers, are not involved in the peer review process. This allows us to work closely with you, providing technical assistance to you on your applications. We will discuss more about that later in this webinar. NCER supports field-initiated, innovative solutions to improve education research and inform policy and practice. Thus, IES strives to support rigorous, relevant research, the dissemination of findings from research, and the development of researchers prepared to conduct high-quality research and disseminate about it appropriately. Through its various grant competitions, NCER supports the actual research and dissemination as well as the development of the researchers. We have separate requests for applications, or RFAs, for the research and training activities. Our largest competition, CFDA 84.305A, called 305A for short, covers the education research activities, whereas the competition we are discussing today, CFDA 84.305B, covers the training activities that will support the development of researchers prepared to conduct the research and dissemination activities described in 305A. Through the 305B grant competition, NCER has supported various models of training. Each model, however, aims to prepare individuals to conduct research activities. Broadly, the 2 models include fellowship-based programs and more workshop-style programs. The fellowship-based programs help to build a pipeline of students and junior researchers through cohorts who receive intensive training and mentoring. The methods workshop-style programs recruit researchers who are currently working in the field, for example, institutional researchers, professors, or research associates, to receive additional hands-on experience with a particular research method or analysis to help support their work. The 3 training topics that NCER is competing this year include the PreDoctoral Interdisciplinary Research Training Program in the Education Sciences, the PostDoctoral Research Training Program in the Education Sciences, and the Methods Training Program for Education Researchers. In a moment, we will turn to each of these topics and review their purpose and requirements, as well as recommendations that NCER has for applicants when preparing their applications. First, we will go over the universal components of a training program application. Regardless of which training program topic you apply to, you will have the following 4 major sections within your application's project narrative: significance, research training plan, personnel, and resources. Briefly, the significance section is where you describe the specific focus of your training program and why this focus is important. The research training plan specifies how you will recruit the intended trainees, whether they are fellows or practicing researchers, and the types of training experiences that they will receive, as well as other elements of the actual training activities. The personnel section describes who will be providing what. This is where you would describe the expertise of particular trainers. For instance, there may be specific trainers to help fellows learn statistical or research methods or to learn about dissemination. The resource section contains information about the institutional and other resources the program would have to help support the training program and the trainees. Meeting the basic requirements determines if your application will be peer-reviewed. The recommendations are what reviewers use as a guide when scoring applications. Thus, to develop a competitive application, you should read and follow the recommendations section for your topic area closely. We now turn to each of the topics in turn and will review the topic's overarching goal, its primary requirements, and some of the specific requirements and recommendations for these 4 sections.
The PreDoctoral Training Program funds training programs to prepare doctoral students to conduct high-quality education research that advances knowledge within the field of education sciences and addresses issues important to education policymakers and practitioners. Between 2004 and 2016, IES has established PreDoctoral training programs at 20 universities for a total investment of almost $161 million in PreDoctoral training. In this new round, we expect to fund up to 5 awards. However, should funding be available, IES may consider making additional awards to high-quality applications that remain unfunded after 5 awards have been made. In order for an application to be forwarded for peer review, it must meet NCER's requirements for the training program focus, eligible applicants, key personnel, and training program narrative. The applicant must be an academic institution located in the territorial United States that confers doctoral degrees in academic fields relevant to education. IES is accepting applications for new PreDoctoral training programs and applications to renew existing training programs. Institutions that have never had a PreDoctoral training program grant can apply to start new programs. Institutions that have had PreDoctoral training programs that have closed prior to August 2020 can apply to start a brand new program or to renew a prior program funded between 2004 and August 2020. Institutions that have PreDoctoral training programs that will still be open in August 2020 can only apply to renew their programs. In the case of multiple potential applications, your academic institution should decide which application should be submitted. If more than one application from an academic institution is submitted to the PreDoctoral training program, IES will determine whether and which applications will be accepted for review and/or will be eligible for funding. All PreDoctoral training programs have the same general purpose, which is to train future education researchers. It is up to you to decide what type of researchers you want to produce. There are some parameters. You must propose a focused training program that addresses U.S. education. This includes pre-kindergarten through high school and post-secondary and adult education. Your training program focus must include a content area based on the research programs identified in the Education Research Grant Program, and a methodological focus based on the project types identified in the Education Research Grant Program and the Research Grants focus on Systematic Replications Program. The content area and methodological focuses of your training program must be selected from the list found in the RFA and shown here. Your focus may include more than one content area and more than one methodological focus. For example, a training program focused on reducing educational inequalities might span multiple content areas and methods. If you're interested in a content area that is not listed here, please contact us to discuss the best match. For example, we would consider education leadership to be part of the Improving Education Systems content area. Your training program should have a distinct, cohesive focus. In your application, you should describe how all the parts work together. Each of these examples represent very different foci. However, all of them would meet RFA requirements. It is your responsibility to very clearly describe how your program will meet the 3 RFA requirements for the focus of your training program. Your institution is responsible for identifying the principal investigator or training director on a grant application. The PI is the individual who has the authority and responsibility for the proper conduct of the training, including the appropriate use of federal funds and the submission of required scientific progress reports. Other personnel may share the authority and responsibility for leading and directing the training project, and these people may be listed as co-principal investigators or co-PIs. Core faculty are also considered key personnel. They are the 5 or more participating faculty members who conduct education research and will conduct the training activities including teaching courses, mentoring fellows, supervising research, and monitoring fellows' progress. Key personnel can be from different disciplines and have different expertise, but collectively they must be able to provide intensive training in the education sciences, including research methodology and statistics. Reviewers will also expect your key personnel to have expertise in the theme you propose. You can think of your research plan as an equation. Fellow plus training equal employed education researcher. If you receive an award under the PreDoctoral Training Program, you will have to certify that your training participants or fellows meet the following requirements. PreDoctoral fellows must be enrolled full-time in a doctoral program for each term during which they receive fellowship support. PreDoctoral fellows' research, including dissertations, must be relevant to practical issues in U.S. education. PreDoctoral fellows must be citizens or permanent residents of the United States. When you're structuring your research training program, the design can vary widely. You can offer 2-year, 3-year, or 4-year fellowships, or a combination of these fellowship types. However, there are several restrictions detailed in the RFA under the financial support and additional budget parameters and award requirement sections. These requirements are summarized here. In addition to the aforementioned requirements, you should also be aware of and attend to the award limits for both time and cost. The maximum duration of a predoctoral training program is 5 years. The maximum award for a predoctoral training program is $4.6 million. Total costs equal direct costs plus indirect costs. As discussed previously, the award can be used to support a maximum of 68 fellowship years, with up to 4 fellowship years per fellow. Your requested budget should depend on the number of fellows to be supported, the number of years of support for each fellow, and the training program support funds requested. Cost sharing is allowed. Your budget is split into two major categories: participant support costs, often described as fellow or trainee support costs, and program costs. These two cost categories have their own requirements and can't be mingled. Your request for grant funds for direct support of fellows should depend on the number of fellow years, a minimum of 30 and maximum of 68, you intend to provide under your training program. Direct support of fellows is contingent on fellows making satisfactory progress in their research activities. Grant funds provided for direct support to the fellows may include the following: $34,000 in stipend per fellow per year for 2 to 4 years, up to $12,000 per fellow per year for tuition, health insurance, and normal fees, and up to $2,000 per fellow year in support of research, travel, and conference attendance. You may also request a maximum of $1,336,000, including direct plus indirect costs, in funding for program supports. Grant funds provided for program support may be used for the following: recruitment of fellows, a limited set of personnel costs to develop and run the training program. These personnel costs include up to 2 months of salary support per year for the PI or distributed among the PI and co-PI to support the management of the program, teaching the course and seminars, and similar operational activities. Up to 6 months of salary support per year combined for a program coordinator to provide logistical and clerical supports for the program and or for other personnel to support implementation of the research apprenticeships. You may request additional months if you can show a need for them. Half the salary of a new faculty member per year, specifically recruited to enhance the quality of the program. And 5 months of salary support for faculty over the entire grant period to develop new curricular courses. Funds can also be used for additional training activities such as apprenticeships, workshops, colloquia, seminars, and fellows presentations, including guest speakers and trainers. Tracking of fellows' progress and program success, a training program website, the PI's attendance at the IES annual meeting, and indirect costs.
Hello, my name is Meredith Larson, and I am one of 2 program officers for the PostDoctoral Training Programs. The PostDoctoral program prepares researchers to conduct the type of research IES funds under its research grant programs, and that is important to practitioners and policymakers. Since this training topic began in 2005, IES has awarded 45 grants to 37 teams of trainers located at 28 different universities across the U.S. These programs have provided training for about 200 postdoctoral fellows, with approximately 20 to 30 who are actively receiving training each year, and nearly 180 who have completed their training. The PostDoctoral Training Program supports training programs to prepare early career researchers with a doctoral degree in hand to conduct high-quality education research that is relevant to the U.S. education system and important to education policymakers and practitioners. These programs support the training of fellows who have high potential but may need more research experience in the education sciences and mentoring before they launch their careers. Through their training, IES postdoctoral fellows should learn how to conduct research independently, take on leadership positions within research teams, work directly with practitioners and policymakers, and clearly communicate their findings to multiple audiences. They should gain the skills necessary to carry out research that meets the requirements and recommendations of the IES Research Grant Programs, and to communicate their research findings effectively to researchers, education policymakers, practitioners, and the public. In addition, they should build professional skills and networks that support working with other researchers, practitioners, policymakers, and other education stakeholders. In your application, you will need to attend to the requirements of these 4 elements. 1. Training program focus. 2. Eligible applicants. 3. Key personnel. And 4. Training program narrative. This year, each postdoctoral training program will have to identify a particular content topic that will focus on one or more methodological foci. NCER is targeting particular content areas in order to help build a larger pool of researchers prepared to do high-quality research in these topics, which have historically received fewer applications at IES, have fewer graduate training programs, or are likely to become more relevant to policymakers or practitioners in the future. Training programs may propose to include other related research content areas to support the primary focus, but they must clearly identify at least one of the content areas NCER is focusing on for this competition. Similarly, each training program will have to identify at least one methodological focus area. These focus areas correspond to the project types, such as exploratory or efficacy research, that IES describes in its research grant competitions. You can refer to the 305A RFA for more details about the project types and their related research methods and analyses. For this year, the 4 content areas NCER wishes to see training programs for are as follows. Adult learners with low skills. This type of research focuses on learners who are 16 years old or older, outside of the K-12 system, and are at or below basic skills. This may include students in adult education, career and technical education, or remedial post-secondary education. Career and technical education. This type of research focuses on education and training of secondary and/or post-secondary students in the academic, technical, and employability skills and knowledge required to enter into and succeed in careers. Education leadership. This type of research focuses on addressing K-12 and post-secondary leaders' role in creating safe and supportive learning environments for students, improving the skills of their staff, implementing policies and programs, managing systems efficiently, and leading organizational change that improves student outcomes. English learners. This type of research focuses on students whose home language is not English and whose English language proficiency hinders their ability to meet learning and achievement expectations for students at their grade level. Your training program must include at least one of these, but if you could provide training relevant to more than one of them, or if you would like to include additional content areas that align with one of these, you may do so. After identifying the content area, the training program must choose the type of research fellows will learn how to conduct. This refers to the methodological focus, which must include at least one of the following. Exploration. This is hypothesis-generating research based on analysis of primary and/or secondary data, or on meta-analysis of existing studies. Development and innovation. This is research that leads to the development and piloting of new education interventions. Efficacy. This is research on the initial evaluation of the impact of an education intervention on student outcomes. Replication. This is research that furthers the evaluation of the impact of an education intervention on student outcomes. And measurement. This is research that leads to the development and validation of assessments. For more information on the methodological focus areas, see the Request for Applications for the Education Research Grants 84.305A and Replication RFA 84.305R. In addition to the training program focus, you must meet the requirements for the eligible applicants and key personnel in order to be forwarded to peer review. Eligible applicant requirements include the following. The applicant must be an academic institution located in the United States and its territories that confers doctoral degrees in fields relevant to education. The applying organization or institution may hold more than one postdoctoral training program award from IES and may submit more than one postdoctoral training program application as long as each actual or proposed training program has a different training focus and no overlap of key personnel, including PI, co-PI, and core training faculty. An applicant may partner with other institutions that will provide fellows with research opportunities aligned with the training program focus. When forming your training program, you may want to include different departments, other universities, research firms, or other outside units. Doing this may help you expand the number and types of opportunities fellows may have. This is an acceptable but not required approach. Key personnel requirements include the following. The PI, any co-PIs, and all mentors are considered key personnel and must be named and listed as key personnel in the application. All key personnel must be on one or more new or ongoing education research projects currently supported by IES or another funding source. These projects should be appropriate for postdoctoral level research training, and there must be at least one active research project that will provide training opportunities for postdoctoral fellows for at least the first 2 years of the training grant. Key personnel on a postdoctoral training grant can take part in only one IES-funded postdoctoral training grant at a time, regardless of whether the training grant is funded by NCER or NCSER. Key personnel on ongoing IES-funded postdoctoral training grants may not apply for another postdoctoral training grant, nor be included on an application as key personnel for a postdoctoral training grant with a start date before the end of their current award. The training program narrative has a recommended length of no more than 20 pages. The narrative must include 4 sections: significance, research plan, personnel, and resources. Significance. The purpose of this section is to describe the focus of your training program and how it will develop researchers capable of conducting and communicating high-quality scientific research that addresses issues important to education policymakers and practitioners. Describe the specific skills and knowledge fellows will receive, and the training program's potential contribution to the field of education sciences. Discuss how the focus of the program, knowledge and skills to be taught, and types of fellows to be recruited differs from and improves upon what is currently available in doctoral programs and fills a need in the field of education sciences. In this section, you must clearly state the training program's content area and methodological foci. These refer back to what we discussed a couple slides ago. Research Training Plan. The purpose of this section is to outline the specific activities and mentoring your training program will provide. In this section, you must describe the recruitment plan, research training activities, the financial support to be provided to individual fellows and to the overall training program, and a plan for tracking fellows' progress and determining the success of the training program. Personnel. The purpose of this section is to describe your training team, including their relevant expertise, responsibilities, and time commitments. In this section, you must describe all key personnel on the project team, including the PI, any co-PIs, and the other mentors. Resources. The purpose of this section is to describe your access to institutional resources at the participating institution and any subaward institutions, and your access to schools and datasets where applicable. In this section, you must describe the institutional resources of both the primary applicant institution and any subaward institutions. To help ensure that more high-potential doctoral students are aware of the training opportunities, IES encourages programs to consider recruitment strategies that will look beyond the typical recruitment networks. This includes reaching out to smaller or less well-known doctoral programs, minority-serving institutions, and departments and disciplines that are related to education research but may not be the same as the trainers' fields. Programs can also consider recruiting non-traditional postdoctoral fellows, such as those who may not be coming directly from their doctoral program, but rather from the workforce. That said, all IES fellows must meet the following requirements. Postdoctoral fellows' research must be relevant to the education in the United States. Postdoctoral fellows must be citizens or permanent residents of the United States. And postdoctoral fellows must have received their doctorate prior to beginning the fellowship. In addition to the aforementioned requirements, you should also be aware of and attend to the award limits for both time and costs. Time maximums. The maximum duration of a postdoctoral training program is 5 years. Cost maximums. The maximum award for a postdoctoral training program project is $766,000 to cover both direct and indirect costs. The award can be used to support a maximum of 8 fellowship years. Your requested budget should depend on the number of fellows to be supported, the number of years of support for each fellow, and the cost of the training program itself. Trainee support costs include the stipend and additional costs for each fellowship year. This includes up to $60,000 maximum in stipend per fellow per year, and up to $25,000 per fellow per year for additional fellow support. This additional support must include fringe benefits, such as health insurance, and should also include support for other training activities, including fellows' independent research, membership in professional organizations or societies, and registration and attendance at workshops, seminars, and professional meetings. It must also include travel to the annual IES PI meeting in Washington, D.C. Program costs include the expenses required to run the program itself. You may request up to $16,000 per training program year, not per fellow year, to support the related program expenses. Example of allowable expenses include the following: recruitment of fellows, including advertising, campus visits, and other expenses; the PI's travel to the annual IES PI meeting; administrative support for the postdoctoral fellowship program; honoraria for speakers for the fellows; convening events for the fellows that include researchers, education practitioners, and/or policymakers; tracking fellows' progress and the success of the training program; and indirect costs.
The Methods Training Program supports training of current education researchers to expand and upgrade their methodological skills. Education researchers include individuals located in colleges and universities, as well as individuals working in state and local education agencies, education-focused organizations, and companies that have developed and deployed education-related products and services. Supported training should respond to the ongoing development and adaptation of methods concerning the design of education studies, analysis of the data collected, and practical interpretation of the results of analyses. The Methods Training Program has supported training in randomized controlled trials, quasi-experimental designs, cost effectiveness and cost analysis, meta-analysis, and conducting research with data from the Program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies, PIAC. The Methods Training Grant Program is intended to support grants that provide specific, immediately useful design or analysis skills for education researchers and practitioners. Specifically, it has two purposes: support researchers and state and local education agency staff to acquire skills necessary to obtain and generate the evidence needed for policy and programmatic decisions. Ensure that education researchers keep up with advances in the field. The RFA gives examples of types of training for these purposes, such as creating and analyzing longitudinal data sets based on state, district, or post-secondary administrative data, carrying out cost analyses and cost-effectiveness analyses of education programs and policies, designing and implementing quick, low-cost evaluations of interventions implemented by education agencies and post-secondary systems using administrative data, examining the variation and impacts across sites in experimental and quasi-experimental studies, designing and implementing replication studies, combining qualitative and quantitative methods to examine the effects of education policy, program implementation, and context on the impact of interventions, and analyzing big data. While IES encourages training in these areas, you may propose training in other methods and should document the need for the training and how it will advance the field. IES is interested in projects that provide researchers and SEA or LEA staff with targeted, relevant training they can immediately apply in their work. The requirements for a methods training program application include applicant eligibility and what must be included in the research training program narrative. Applicants for methods training grants must be located in the territorial United States and demonstrate adequate capabilities for hosting and conducting the proposed training at a high level of quality. A given institution can apply for and have multiple methods training grants as long as the training grants cover clearly distinct topics and as long as there are no key personnel in common across the grants. The training program narrative has a recommended length of no more than 20 pages, and it must include 4 sections: significance, research training plan, personnel, and resources. Please read the RFA carefully for the full set of requirements for these 4 sections of the application narrative. The significance section describes the focus of your training program, including the methodological training you will provide, and justify why this focus is important to improving the fields of education research and practice. You must include the specific methodologies that will be the focus of your training program and the intended participants. The rationale for your focus should include an illustration of the need for more researchers and/or practitioners in education who possess the training skill set, along with support for the uniqueness of the proposed training compared to potential alternatives such as an existing academic curriculum or training modules that can already be found online. In sum, justify the importance of the proposed training in terms of demand in the field of education for people who can use the skills and a lack of clear alternatives for acquiring equivalent training. The research training plan describes the training you will provide, including recruitment for and outcomes of the training. You must include the following: the recruitment plan, the training content, format, and activities, including any source material to be read by participants prior to or during the training, and a plan for tracking participants' progress and the program's success. The recruitment plan should target the type of participants you would like to train. Eligibility is limited to U.S. citizens or permanent residents. Discuss strategies for recruiting individuals from groups underrepresented in the field of education research. Describe your eligibility criteria, application process, selection criteria, and selection process. For the training content, a detailed syllabus and timetable is helpful, along with a description of the instructional methods and training activities you would use with each section of the training and who would lead each section. For the tracking plan, describe how you will tailor the training to participants' needs, determine whether they can apply the methods in their own research, and estimate the cost of the training per participant. The personnel section describes the relevant expertise of your research team, the responsibilities of each team member, and the time commitments of each team member. you must include each of the following. All key personnel on the project team, including the PI, co-PIs, and additional instructors and trainers. The proposed experts who will provide the training for each specific topic to be covered, and letters of agreement from relevant training personnel in Appendix E. IES will not accept applications that propose to hire methods experts once the grant is received. Overall, you want to show that the key personnel, individually and in combination, have the technical expertise, training experience, and time commitment to successfully carry out the proposed training. In the Resources section, describe the infrastructure available at or through the applying institution and any subaward institutions, such as training venues, the availability of technology support personnel, and the capacity to engage in recruitment efforts that will reach an ethnically diverse participant pool. To show that such resources are available, you might describe your institutional capacity to manage a training grant of this type, describe your access to any data that participants will be using, include letters of agreement from sub-awardees and any consultants on the project, describe any ongoing or recently completed methods research projects led by key personnel that are related to the content of the proposed training grant, detail these in Appendix C, note the success of any previous methods training grants key personnel have taken part in and include these details in Appendix C, and describe any lessons learned from them that are incorporated in this application. Describe your resources to provide opportunities for non-participants to obtain access to the training, such as posting videos or materials from the training. These opportunities should be included in your dissemination plan in the appendix. The maximum length for the proposed performance period of a methods training grant is 3 years. The maximum request for funding is $800,000 total for all 3 years of the grant. This includes all direct costs, indirect costs, and any other costs proposed to be charged to the grant. Within the $800,000 cap for the total award, there is no per year maximum or minimum. Please read the RFA regarding how the grant can be used to provide support to participants. The applicant determines the qualifications for the participants who are to receive training through a methods training grant. This includes a requirement that participants must be citizens or permanent residents of the United States. Methods training grants typically have more people who want to take the training than slots available, so there should be a plan to create an application and screening process for training participants. It is recommended that participants at least demonstrate that they have immediate need for the skills in the training and that they have the minimum competency to be able to learn the material at the level at which it will be taught. For example, depending on the material, participants might be required to work in a state education finance office, to need to be familiar with certain statistical software packages, or to have experience analyzing and organizing data from state assessments.
So what are your next steps? This slide includes important dates for 84.305B, the training grant competitions. Grants.gov must have your applications no later than August 29, 2019 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Submit your letters of intent by July 11, 2019. We will talk more about letters of intent or LOIs shortly. The application package will be available on grants.gov on July 11th as well. Note that the possible start dates for the award are between July 1st, 2020 and September 1st, 2020. One of the great things about the IES grant competition process is that IES program officers can work relatively closely with applicants during the application process. We encourage you to reach out to us and let us help you as informed colleagues. At the end of the day, we are not involved in the review process and cannot decide which applications are funded, so all final decisions about the program's structure are yours and should reflect what you feel is appropriate. That said, here are a few ways to begin working with us. First, you can always email us with ideas and to get feedback. Our emails are at the end of this presentation and in the RFA. Second, if you submit a letter of intent, we will necessarily reach out to you to kick off a conversation. Finally, if you have something you would like us to read, we would be happy to do so, provided we have enough time. As we just mentioned, if you submit an LOI, one of us will reach out to you. To submit an LOI, you will need to go online and use the Primo website. The URL is here. The due date for an LOI is July 11. If you miss the due date, please reach out to the program officer so that we can help you and still keep track of the number and types of LOIs people want to submit. An LOI is a non-binding, optional document, but we strongly encourage people to submit them because they help IES plan for reviews and help us find you. The LOI is typically about a page long, so you don't have to spend a lot of time getting the specifics. A few paragraphs is likely to be enough to get things started. There are two key reference documents that you should read. The request for applications will include helpful general guidance in the first and last two sections and specific information about each training topic in the second section. We encourage you to read the front and back and your topic area carefully. Also, each year there are changes made to the RFAs. Part 1 of the RFA will include a summary of those changes. We urge you to pay attention to these changes, particularly if you have applied to IES in the past and you may be resubmitting an application. The one change that we do want to make sure you are aware of is that there is a separate IES submission guide that lays out the full submission process and provides information about how to apply via grants.gov. Every applicant will need to review that document in addition to the request for applications under which they are applying. There are a few other online resources you may want to leverage. First, we encourage you to browse through the posted abstracts of our funded grants on our website. You can sort by the topic area you're interested in to see what others have proposed. Also, as we're sure you are aware, IES posts on-demand webinars that you can access at your convenience, covering a wide range of topics, including a grant writing workshop or webinars about specific funding competitions. Please go to the website to see what's already posted and check back to see what's new. We encourage all applicants, regardless of which competition you're interested in, to review the basic overview webinar. Finally, we also have a Resources for Researchers page with grant information for you, including methodological resources to assist in preparing an IES research grant application, videos from past IES training institutes, information about available data sets and tools, among other things. This is the contact information for each of the training programs. Each request for applications includes contact information for the relevant program officers. Please contact them for more information. I encourage you to reach out to the program officer or officers listed on the RFA for the grant competition you are interested in. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook.